Hello, my name is Mansoor and I will be studying public policy at Hines College this fall. Today's presentation will be about Pakistan's struggle with polio virus. This rather chaotic looking graph neatly sums up Pakistan's struggle with polio virus that I will be elaborating upon during this presentation. In this presentation, I will briefly go over the history of this virus in Pakistan, government's various efforts to eradicate it. Then I'll be going over the key obstacles that the government is facing. And then before concluding, I would like to put forward a few policy proposals which can help the government become more effective in its efforts. Pakistan is one of the two remaining countries in the entire world where polio is still considered endemic by World Health Organization. The initial efforts started in 1993 and those efforts were deemed successful by the various aid agencies due to the various advances that they made. In fact, if you look at the graph here, during mid-2000s, complete eradication was well within sight. Unfortunately, the government wasn't able to capitalize on the advances that were made during that period. And as we can see here, as the decade progressed and we entered the next one, the number of cases began to increase steeply. While this was happening, state was ravaged by militancy. There was a negative perception about the vaccine, and then there was a general degradation of states' health initiative. This graph here shows the geography of the epidemic. The high-risk areas are concentrated along the tribal belt and in the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa or the KPK province. They are also concentrated in northwest Balochistan, in the south, in the port city of Karachi in Sindh. Central Punjab and northern Sindh are also considered to be high-risk areas right now. Now, all these areas that I have mentioned have a few things in common. One is the low literacy levels, especially among females. Second is poor access to health facilities and sanitation. Then, except for Karachi, all these areas happen to be rural or semi-urban with low household incomes when compared to the national average. Furthermore, other than central Punjab and northern Sindh, all of these areas experience a high degree of militant activity. The provincial breakdown is such that KPK, Balochistan and Sindh provide with 66% of polio cases, despite having only 41% of Pakistanis living in these provinces. The situation is even worse in the tribal areas, which with only 3% of the population account for almost 1/3 of the polio cases. Initially, the polio vaccination started under the extended program on immunization. This is the regular channel through hospitals and health centers in both rural and urban areas, both run by government. However, due to failures to completely eradicate through this channel, government initiated a National Emergency Action Plan in 2011. This was a federal effort, and the plan, which is an annual plan, is chaired by the Prime Minister directly. Efforts were made to provide security to the polio workers on the front line, since these were targeted regularly by the militants. Moreover, to counter the negative perception around the vaccination, government also partnered with religious clerics to issue edicts in order to provide a counter-narrative. Moreover, it must be noted here that the security situation for polio teams remains precarious. The government's various plans and targets have not been achieved in the past years, and every year the government revises the target to the next year. And this is why. Despite large-scale efforts of government and aid agencies, the complete eradication is still not within sight. This can be attributed to household factors and government level factors. At household level, there is among certain households a complete lack of awareness due to low literacy levels. They lack awareness about polio virus. They don't know what it can do to their child and hence don't feel the need to get vaccination. Then there is the threat of violence. Some parents are simply too scared to get their children vaccinated, since it has happened in the past that many homes are targeted simply because a polio worker happened to visit that particular household. Moreover, there are religious views of parents. Some simply think that vaccination runs counter to their own religious ideologies. And then there are those parents who actually want to get their children vaccinated but simply lack an access to health facilities. And this is especially true for low-income households in rural areas. And then there are government level factors. There is lack of security and lack of incentives for those on the front line, the health workers, which has certainly adversely affected their productivity as well as their morale. Moreover, the communications campaign that the government has launched has proved to be ineffective to a large extent. This is because the channel, the medium that the government has been using is television, which is not widely present in many of the households in the areas that I have shown earlier. Moreover, government generally partners with clerics which are on the payroll of the government or are employees of the government. Hence, these people lack legitimacy and the connection with the people in those populations to be able to convince them about the merits of the vaccination. There is also this element of friction between federal government and provincial governments. Health is generally overseen by provincial governments, but since polio eradication happens to be a federal effort, there is a lot of friction between the respective sets of governments, especially with regards to finance. So a lot of times, due to circular debt and lack of payments, the vaccine itself has gone in short supply, which adversely affected the campaign. Moreover, there is a failure to implement proper record keeping. In rural areas, parents do not have birth certificates, and since children are not registered with the government, the health officials don't have the data they need to track down and administer the vaccination. So what can the government do to become more efficient? Well, the first thing would be to optimize the communications campaign. Instead of spending millions of rupees on television advertising, it would be better to have a door-to-door campaign involving local traditional elites and local clerics who have legitimacy among the people, partnering with them to convince people about the merits of vaccination and to create a conducive environment for the health workers to work in. And then, of course, improving infrastructure in high-risk areas to improve accessibility. Developing microplans is also very important. This is something that India did a couple of years ago and was able to achieve complete eradication. Right now, the approach is a provincial one, and these provinces happen to be as large as an average European country in terms of population. So having microplans for specific high-risk districts would allow the government to target the population which is in most dire need of vaccination, and would improve the supply chain in those areas which generally happen to have very poor infrastructure. Strengthening security and incentives for health workers is also an imperative which is going to improve their productivity. Tracking and mapping of population is also very, very important. There is a lot of inward migration from the northwest and western Balochistan towards Karachi, and hence this migration results in Karachi becoming a recipient of an even greater strains of virus. So having health checkposts on key crossings should allow the government to improve coverage as well as to have a better capability to monitor the population. The government should also strengthen its EPI, the Extended Program on Immunization, which is the regular channel. This would allow the government to make the gains in any given year sustainable. We have seen that some years experienced lower number of cases, but they were followed with years which experienced a very high number, or experienced a very steep increase. This is due to the fact that there is an over-reliance on ad hoc campaigns instead of institutions. To sum up, there is no doubt that Pakistan has to confront the various social and political challenges if it wants to achieve complete eradication. However, there is some cause for optimism. Punjab, which is the largest province and has about 51% of Pakistanis living in it, is near complete eradication. In fact, it should reach it by 2017. Its efforts and reforms are being praised by people all over the world. But more importantly, Sindh and KPK are also replicating those reforms and should be able to produce better results in the coming 3 years. The security situation has also improved drastically. Since start of 2015, there has been a more than 70% decline in the incidences of violence, especially militant violence in Pakistan. The government's National Database and Registration Authority has also improved its own capability of data capturing through increased use of technology in rural areas. This should provide local government officials with the relevant data in order to target specific households and hence improve coverage in those areas. While Pakistan's various problems might not get solved in the coming 3 years, it is still possible to eradicate polio. Pakistanis can look across the world onto Africa. Ethiopia and Nigeria, both weak states and with their own problems of law and order, have been able to achieve polio eradication within their borders. This only happened through a continuous process of learning and perseverance, which one would hope that Pakistan is able to replicate and hence able to eradicate polio within its borders within the coming 3 years. Thank you.